right, guys, how's it going? It's 1 o'clock Central Time, and I'm super excited to be on the line with you today. I've been kind of nervous all week, but I'm glad you guys are here. And I know you guys are an awesome group of guys because, honestly, how many guys in our culture want to stop and ask for help or ask for directions or just would hop on a webinar to figure out how they can be a better man? And so I'm super thankful that you're here today, and I'm super thankful that you took time out of your schedule because I know you guys are busy. And so it's going to be a pretty fast-paced webinar. I'm going to throw some things out at you, and my hope really for our time together is, number one, that you learn some things, and number two, whatever you learn in the webinar today, that when you get off, you actually start trying to put those things in place in your life. And so whatever happens today, I want you to take offline and begin the hard work of doing it. And some of you know me. My name is Rhett Smith. And if you don't know me, let me just tell you a little bit about who I am and why I want to talk about men. I have been working with men for about the last 18 years. I've been doing it in several different ways. First of all, I've spent about 18 years working in church contexts with men. Spent time working in just in the local community, in community mental health agencies, and I've spent a lot of time working with men, which I do now currently in my private practice. And so I just love working with men. I have a passion for working with men. I feel like more than ever, men need help. And so here's kind of what I do for a living, so you can kind of understand why this is important to me. Number one, I do a lot of therapy work. I have a private practice in Plano, and I work primarily with men, with couples, and with family. And I'm a huge believer that if I can help a guy, not only will his life change, but so will his marriage and so will his family. I'm really a huge believer that often it begins with that guy changing himself, and it has radical implications on his marriage and his family and the people he hangs out with. Second, I'm a therapist at the Hideaway Experience, which is an awesome place. It's a 4-day marriage intensive up in Amarillo, and 4 couples come in for 4 days, and 2 of us therapists work for those 4 days just helping them have a new marriage, helping them work through their crisis, helping them to go from good to great. And so I do that full time. I also am a writer. Put out a couple of books the last 2 years with Moody Publishers. The first one about 2 years ago called The Anxious Christian. John Acuff wrote the foreword, and in that book, I just talk about how God uses our fears and our anxieties to help us grow. And so maybe that's something that really resonates with you. And then last year, or just this year in March, put out a book called What It Means to Be a Man, and Justin Davis of Refinest Marriage Ministry in Nashville wrote the foreword. And I'll be talking about that book a little bit just briefly today. So I also write, and I do a lot of speaking. I do a lot of marriage workshops and speak at some conferences, do a lot of men's stuff, especially recently. I've been speaking at some men's retreats and conferences. And I do a lot of parenting workshops, especially here locally. I'll go to a church or go to a conference and just help parents and families, and especially men, learn what it means to be a better father. So I do those things. And I want to talk about men a little bit. And as I'm talking, I want you to think about, do any of these things resonate with you? Do you identify with any of these things? And I think men are just really confused right now about what it means. It's a confusing time. If you look around, culture says a guy is supposed to be this way, and a movie might say it's supposed to be this way, and we read something else in the magazines, and a guy is supposed to be this way, and we go to church maybe, or we belong to some type of community where it says, no, a guy is supposed to be this way. And you're supposed to be strong, but you're supposed to be, tough, but also vulnerable, and you're supposed to be open. And so I think guys are confused. And, I think more than ever, guys are asked to be strong, but they're also asked to be really sensitive, right? People want a guy who's strong, but they want him to also be open and emotional and to be able to talk about his feelings and connect. And those two things sometimes do not go hand in hand for many men. How do you be strong and tough, but also be open and vulnerable? And I think many men just really, really struggle with that. And then I think there's this huge expectation that we as guys are supposed to know how to fix everything. And I don't mean cars, because if that's what it means to be a man, then I'm in really trouble. I don't know how to fix a car or fix things in our house. But I think guys are supposed to know how to fix problems and fix relationships. And sometimes we don't know how to. Sometimes we don't have the tools to. We weren't taught how to do that. And we're just really, really stuck. And so I think when guys are confused and they don't know which way to go and what it means to be a man, and maybe they didn't learn certain things, I find that it results in a lot of different things in men. But one thing it results in guys who just lack emotional connection. When guys are confused and they feel stuck, and when they don't know how to fix things, and when they don't know how to communicate how they feel, guys often withdraw and they shut down and they retreat. And when you shut down and retreat and withdraw, you absolutely disconnect from relationships. You don't know how to connect to a wife, to a kid, to a friend, to someone you work with. I also think it results in men who lack passion and some type of path in their life. They just kind of let life happen to them. These are the guys who wake up 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and they go, how did I get here? I have no idea. And so guys lack passion and direction because I think they're confused. And when you're stuck, we never really set a course for our life. And so we end up in places we didn't really anticipate. We have no map for how to get from here to there. And then I think you get men who are just overwhelmed and burned out. They don't know how to take care of themselves physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and they're exhausted, and they go home, and they're just on edge and agitated and angry, and their temper is really short, and they're about to blow, and kids are running, and wives are running, and fearful of dad coming home. And guys are just burned out, and they have no energy left in the tank to give to the things that they really want to give time to. And I think that's what's happening in guys a lot here in our culture. And often there's like stereotypes that come up, and you and I could sit down and probably list 50 to 60 different stereotypes of men. But here's a few I just want to list that I often see walk in my door, and I spend time working with guys who are really like this. There's the guy who's just angry. Man, he is just always on a short fuse, short temper, always about to blow. Like I said, he goes home, wife, kid, friends are fearful to be around him. Because you never know what's going to set dad off. And then there's a guy who's stuck. Man, he just cannot make any change in his life. And that's not a fun guy to be around either, because when he's stuck, it makes everyone else feel stuck either. When a guy's stuck and doesn't know how to make change, everyone else feels stuck. Or what about the guy who's passive? He's just quiet and withdrawn. He might say he's stuck too, but he doesn't know how to initiate change in his own life, let alone change in the people, in his house or in his workplace or in his church or in his community. He's passive, he's quiet, and he's withdrawn. And then there's the guy who's the workaholic. And man, guys, we're like really looked up to often in our culture if we work hard, but sometimes guys who work hard leave a devastation of just complete devastation around them, especially when it comes to relationships. This is a guy who at work, he feels good about himself, he gets affirmed, he has the skills and the experience and the training to get the job done, but he goes home maybe and the tools that work at work don't work at home. And so he's frustrated and he's angry. And so what does he do? He goes back to where he feels good about himself, which is work. So you get fathers and you get men who just look at their phones all day and retreat to their BlackBerries and iPhones, and because that's where they feel competent. Or they just spend more time in the office, whether it's at the office or whether it's the home office. And so those guys just get in this perpetual loop of working. Or what about the guy who's just emotionally absent? I cannot tell you the number of stories of people who come to my office, especially kids, and it's heartbreaking, and they say, Dad's like there, but he's not really there. Like he's in the house and he's in that chair, but he sits in front of the TV all night. Or he's just out in the yard kind of working. Or he's just sitting in his office. So Dad's there, but he's not emotionally engaged. I can't get anything from Dad emotionally. And so there's a lot of different stereotypes. And even as I'm sharing that, maybe some of those resonate with you. Maybe you've wondered if you're that guy, or you go, yeah, I'm that guy. And I would argue that most of us have probably experienced one or all those guys at different parts in our lives or at the same time. And I love this quote from Archibald Hart in his book. It's a great quote, that sometimes being a man is hazardous to your health, especially when you have to maintain your masculine identity at all costs. When you put up this front of what it means to be a man, I got to be tough, I have to have all the answers, and I have to have life figured out, and I can't let my guard down, I can't be vulnerable, man, that is dangerous to our health. And we're going to burn out, and we're going to emotionally disconnect, and we're going to end up on this road empty into nowhere and wondering, how did we get here? And so that's where guys are at, I think. And you might be one of those guys. And so I want to, in this webinar, talk about 3 different things that I want to help you with. Number 1, we want to come up with some type of strategy that's going to help you envision and create the life you want. And why is that important? Because if you don't have any idea of what you want and where you want your life to go, then number 1, you're never going to get there, and you're just never going to have a roadmap. In fact, there's a lot of stories and a lot of Proverbs, but one that comes to mind is Proverbs 29, where the people don't have a vision, people perish. And so where a guy does not have a vision in his life, people perish. Not only does he perish, but maybe his marriage perishes, and maybe his family perishes, or his passion perishes. And so I want to help you begin to think about some type of vision for your life. And then number 2, we're going to talk about how to become unstuck. How do you dive deeper and have some type of emotional connection, a deep emotional connection in your relationships? Why is that important? Because people that you're in a relationship with, they want to know how you feel. They don't want to have to guess. They want you to talk to them. And then last, we're going to look at 4 ways that you can invest in yourself so that you can become a greater father, husband, friend. If you're not married, yes, you can become a better friend, a better worker, just a better person. We're looking at those 4 areas. And like I said, we're going to cruise through some of these pretty quickly. But I hope that what you learn, you will use in your daily life, and you'll hop off this call and you'll go, okay, I'm going to start working on these things right now. And so if you have a piece of paper, pull out a piece of paper and a pen, take some notes, type on your computer, or just as we talk, kind of just work through this in your head. So let's start with number 1, envisioning your ideal life. And why is that important? Because you have to have some idea of what your life looks like, right? If you don't, you become those guys that I talk about who are stuck and who are confused and overwhelmed. What does your ideal look like? And there's 2 exercises I'm going to walk you through. One is how do you imagine your perfect day, and how do you create a vision and a mission statement? And so let's just talk about your perfect day for a minute. And if you've never done this exercise, let me tell you, this is huge. I just started doing this in my life, and as I started to imagine my perfect day, I started to actually live it and try to live it. And I don't live it every day, but I work really hard because now I have a goal of what I want my life to look like. And so maybe some questions for you are, what time do you get up? What time do you go to bed? What kind of work are you doing during the day? What hobbies are you engaging in? Again, this is your perfect day, not the day you're living right now, but what do you imagine your perfect day to look like? How, where, and when are you spending time with your loved ones? And what kind of people are around you? And where do you feel most connected to God maybe in that day, or the most at peace in that day? And as you're thinking about that, let me tell you a little story about my perfect day. And again, I don't live this every day, right? Because this is my perfect day, and I'm striving to live towards this. But now that I know what it is, I can actually make some changes to be that guy. So my perfect day starts at 5 a.m., right? Which sounds totally miserable to some people. But for me, 5 a.m., I wake up, my feet hit the floor, I'm energized, I'm excited. I put on running shoes, and I'm out the door. And I'm on a run, sometimes short, sometimes long, probably on average about 7 miles. And sometimes I have my headphones in, and sometimes I don't. And I spend that time just clearing my head for the day and spend time sometimes praying or listening to music or thinking about some of the problems going on in my life, or thinking about some of the relationships I have and how can I make them better. And I come back in my perfect day, I throw all the healthy stuff in my kitchen into my Vitamix, and I have a green smoothie. That's like the beginning of a perfect day for me. And then in my perfect day, I sit down and I make breakfast for my wife and kids. And I know my wife would actually love that, you know. And I don't always do that, but I want to. And I sit down at the table and my kids and wife, and we sit and we eat and we talk about our day and we connect before I leave for the day. And I get ready for work, and I get in the car, and I drive my daughter to school and drop her off, and then I head to the coffee shop for about 2 hours. And what I do at the coffee shop is I study and I read and I work on projects, and I maybe meet someone up for coffee just to connect with them, because that's important, to spend some time with some people, or to talk about my business, or to network, or just to see how someone's doing who's hurting. And then I go into the office, and in my perfect day, I see about 5 guys a day, maybe 6 max, because I know that I can give 5 guys, 6 guys the best of who I am in that day. After 5 or 6 guys, I get tired. I'm not as sharp, and that guy doesn't get the best of me. So my perfect day, I see about 5 or 6 guys. And then I go home around 4, 4:30, 5, and I hang out with my family. My kids are out playing, my wife's out playing, and we hang out, and then we make dinner together. And then for those of you who are fathers, you guys know what crazy it is right after dinner, bedtime. So it's craziness. All craziness breaks loose. All hands on deck. And I get to wrestle with my kids because I love wrestling. And then we read stories and we pray together, and we lay in bed a few minutes and they go to bed. And then I go down and I have the rest of the evening, usually 2 hours, just to hang out with my wife. And we might hang out by sitting on the couch together and working on some projects separately. Or we might hang out by watching a TV show we like. Or we might hang out by reading a book separately on the couch next to each other. Or, you know what, we might talk about a problem that we have in our relationship. But we're just hanging out. We're trying to connect. We're working on connecting. It's important. That's in my perfect day. And then I go to bed at 10 in my perfect day, or I move towards bed at 10 and lay down and I read and fall asleep about 10:30. That is a perfect day for me. Do I live that every day? No, but that's what I imagine. And so now I have goals to live out that perfect day. So what does your perfect day look like? And I have some questions for you. Does your typical day right now line up with your perfect day? Does the day you're living right now line up with your perfect day? Why or why not? Where are the disconnects? What are the issues going on? And so a challenge for you is, what is the first thing you would have to do differently right now to begin to move towards your perfect day? What's the first thing you could do when you got this call to move towards your perfect day? Here's what it is for me. You know what it is? It's moving towards bed at 10 a.m. That's where I started to change my perfect day. Because if I do that first, everything else changes. That's where I started. That was maybe one of the easier changes to make. So start somewhere. And maybe a question is, what's keeping you from doing this? I tell you what kept me from doing it. I thought, why should I have a perfect day? I mean, who am I to have a perfect day? Does God even want me to have a perfect day? And I had to get over that fear and that anxiety and go, you know what? It's okay for me to envision what my life might look like. Maybe that perfect day is something that God is calling me to live out. And so what does your perfect day look like? That's the first exercise. The second is, do you have a vision and mission for your life? I think every guy should have an individual vision statement and mission statement that they have written down and they look at and they review regularly. And one of the things you might do is this. And if a guy were to come to my office, it would take much longer. It would take days or weeks for us to do this. I'd have him actually write out 50 to 60 things, but I'm going to have you write out 10 things really quickly, or just imagine them in your head. And what I want you to imagine is, what makes you you? Like, what separates you from other people, or what just makes you you? Imagine your friends sitting around and saying, "Yeah, this is what makes you you." And they can be really simple things. Well, first of all, you're a guy, or most of you on this line are. You're a guy. Maybe you live in Texas or California or Georgia, right? Or maybe you like to hunt, or you like to run, or you love sports, man. You're obsessed with sports. And maybe you love Mexican food or sushi, or, maybe you love to go on trips. Or maybe you're a family man and spend time in relationships with family. Or maybe, maybe faith is really important and being a part of a faith community. What are those things that make you you? Just put 10 things down. Again, I'll have you later on write way more than that. And as you look at that list and reflect on that list, you'll notice that there are some themes that most likely emerge. And what those themes are really for you are really your core values. Because where we see a theme emerge that's kind of essentially a value that you live by, right? And so let me tell you a couple of things when I did this exercise. One theme that really came out for me is that I love things to do with health and wellness. So it had to do with healthy eating or running or exercising or going on hikes with family. That was huge. That was a core value. Another theme that emerged was people, whether it's my family or friends. I love spending time with people and relationally connecting. So that was a theme. A third theme that emerged was faith. There was a lot of themes about hanging out with people in a faith community or participating in a faith community or prayer or spending time with God. And then my fourth one was this theme of just idea of simple living. I hate clutter. I don't like to see junk out. My office is like spick and span. I like to live simply. And so that was the fourth theme, this idea of living simply. And I'm always asking, how can I live life more simply? And those are my 4 core values. And so what I did was, based on those 4 core values, I started to create a vision statement. And so here's a question for you. The core values that you imagine, do you live those out in your everyday life? Are they a part of your everyday life? Why or why not? And so what's the first thing you would have to do maybe to have those core values lived out in your everyday life? What's the first thing you'd have to change? And so here's an exercise for you guys. We're going to wrap up on this first question, this first part of the webinar here. And I want you to do an exercise, and when you get off the webinar, to really work on this. I want you to brainstorm, first of all, 40 to 60 things. Write down 40 to 60 things that make you you. And then I want you to identify on that list your core values. What are the themes that emerge? Usually there's about 3, 4, 5. So you do like 4 or 5, 3 or 4, that's the best. And then I want you to create a vision statement based on those core values. Nothing crazy, nothing long or eloquent, just like 3 or 4 sentences. This is my vision statement for my life right now. And then under that vision statement, I want you to write a little mission statement. The mission statement is simply, these are the 2 to 3 actionable steps, actionable items that I'm going to do the next 2 to 3 weeks, the next 2 to 3 months that will take me closer to my perfect day and the life I want to live. And here's a tip for all of you. This is a working exercise. Don't strive for perfection. This is just a working statement. We're just getting the ball rolling for you. We're just getting something going here. Okay, so that's the first thing. I want you to envision your perfect day in your ideal life. Because if you can't picture that, you can't imagine that, then you don't have a roadmap for where you want to go, and you'll find yourself stuck. And if you guys do this, trust me, you'll be light years ahead of most guys that I work with. That's the first thing. Second, let's talk about what it looked like for you to emotionally connect with people in your life. And we're going to talk about it in two ways. I'm going to help you identify where you get stuck, that stuck zone, and I'm going to help you identify your life-giving zone, okay? And here's what I want you to imagine. I'm going to tell you a little story. I want you to imagine you go to a party, or you go to your office, or you go to a community group, or you go to a sporting event, and I want you to imagine there's two types of guys that you run into. The first guy is this guy who is just not really encouraging, and he's kind of down a lot, and he's not really excited about anything. In fact, when you're around him, it feels like he sucks life out of you, like he is just draining. And when you leave, you just don't feel like you're a better person. I'm not talking about the guy who's having a hard day or who's hurting and he needs your help. I'm talking about the guy who just sucks life out of you. And then I want you to picture the other guy who, man, when you're around, he is just encouraging, he's compassionate, he's caring. After a conversation with him, you get in the car and you're like, man, that was a great conversation. Like, I feel alive. Like, I want to hang out with that guy more. Those are two very different types of guys. And what I want you to imagine yourself, and what I want to encourage you to become is that second guy, the guy who is what I call a life giver. He is life-giving when he is around people. So we're going to talk about what that looks like. And so the first thing I want to ask you is, what do you normally do when, okay, and here are the questions. For example, you might have an argument with a spouse. What do you normally feel? What do you feel when you get in an argument with your spouse, or when your kids aren't listening? Or let's say you aren't married. What do you normally feel when you're in a conflict in your relationship with people that are important to you? Or when you find yourself stuck at work and things aren't going well, or you fail at something? What do you normally feel? I'll be honest, us guys, we're not really known for identifying what we feel. We're not known to have a huge list of words that we can, say, this is how I feel. And that's okay. So I'm going to do what I do with most of the guys who come to my office. I slide a list of words across the desk to them and say, hey, tell me what you feel. And so I give them a list of words, and they go, oh, my gosh, this is how I feel. I didn't know I felt this way, but now I'm looking at this word. This is how I feel. And so instead of always telling me I just feel mad and frustrated, they're like, I feel alone, or I feel hopeless, or I feel disrespected. I'll tell you what I normally feel when I'm in conflict with my spouse or things aren't going well. I feel alone. I feel not good enough. I feel like a failure. I feel abandoned. Those are huge for me. Those are constant themes. That's what I normally feel: abandoned, alone, not good enough, failure. Hopefully a word or two jumped off the page for you, because we're going to keep moving. Just identify a word or two that you normally feel. And I want to ask you a question then. When you feel that way, what do you normally do? Like, what's your behavior? What would I see? What would your friends see? When you feel those things, do you normally get angry, or do you normally shut down? Do you normally drink? Do you normally look at porn? Do you numb yourself out some way? Do you get critical or sarcastic? What do you normally do when you feel that way? I'll tell you what I normally do when I feel alone or like a failure or abandoned or not good enough. I'm the guy who shuts down. I'm the guy who withdraws. I'm the guy who gets quiet. I don't get angry. I don't rage. I just get quiet and I shut down. In fact, whether you're angry or you shut down, those are both as devastating to a healthy relationship. And I do something that's really ugly, and my wife can verify this. I tend to pout. Yeah, I'm the guy who pouts on occasion, and that's what I normally do. And you guys have something that you normally do. And what that is, this is just called your stuck zone. And there's different names for it, as you see below. Terry Hargrave, this married researcher and therapist and professor at Fuller, calls it the pain cycle. Gary Smalley calls it the fear dance. There's different names for it. There is some place that when a feeling gets triggered, you automatically behave in a certain way. And to be honest, you are probably really unlikely of this pattern. And why is this pattern important? Because this pattern you do, this stuck zone, is something you probably have been doing most of your life. In fact, all of the latest brain science and research tells us that this pattern we get stuck in probably got stuck in our brain somewhere before the time of age 6, when our brain is really developing. And it really gets in there between ages 6 and 16. In fact, a lot of the neuroscience researchers call it a rut. Our brain is stuck in some rut. When a feeling gets triggered, we just automatically cope and behave what we've always done. And so that's why you get a guy who's 35, 45, 55, who, when that feeling gets triggered, they automatically respond like they were when they were 16 or 8. The same reason when my wife and I are in conflict, I automatically go back to what I know as a kid. I automatically withdraw and shut down in relationships. That's what I've always done. And so it's really important that you begin to identify where you're stuck. It's a huge thing. Because if you can identify where you're stuck and have language begin to talk about it, it will change your relationships. But here's the cool thing. That's only one piece of the puzzle. There's a second piece to get out of the stuck zone. You guys have to do the hard work of identifying what is the truth about you. So even in conflict, what do you anchor your sense of identity to? Or what do you believe deep down to be the truth about yourself? Another way to get at it is people who love you, how do they see you? Or how do you think God really sees you? What's that truth? And this is a hard turn for people. In fact, when I work up at the Hideaway, Marriage Intensive, and we work on this piece, this is the hardest piece. Some people cannot turn this corner, and it takes a lot of work. And so what is that truth? And I'm going to give you some more words. Maybe the truth is, that I'm actually loved, or that I'm wanted, or that, I am good enough, or that I am adequate, or that I'm not alone. It's hard for us to identify our truth, but this is a powerful thing for us. I can give you a story from the Bible about someone who knew their truth, right? Jesus is getting baptized there in the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and his Father from heaven says, "You are my Son, whom I love. With you I'm well pleased." The truth is not you are my son because you're going to be a miracle worker, or you're my son because you're going to go heal people. The truth is you are my son, right? It's based in relationship. And so every one of us have to identify that truth that's real about us. I tell you what my truth is. After a lot of years of hard work, getting out of my stuck place, my truth was I realized that I'm not alone. People are there for me. My wife is there for me. My family is there for me. God is there for me. The truth is I am good enough, that I can accomplish, that I do have what it takes. But it's hard, man, because that stuck zone is always around the corner, and it doesn't go away. We have to work really hard to get out of it. And so I want you to imagine when you're in that truth place, what strengths naturally emerge. Because, guys, when you are living out of that truth, there's some amazing stuff that comes out of you. You might notice that you are an encourager, or that you're giving, or that you're peaceful or patient, or that you're able to be self-controlled and not give in to addictions, whether it's alcoholism or drugs or porn. Right? What are those strengths that emerge? I can tell you what I think my strengths are, and these are some things that people have told me. I can be pretty encouraging. I'm pretty patient. I know when I'm in my truth and I walk in the door at home at night, I'm patient with my wife and kids. When I'm in that stuck place, I'm the least patient guy. I tend to be pretty caring. When you guys connect to your truth, you are that life-giving guy that I'm talking about. Let's just call this pattern your life-giving zone. So I want you guys to see there are essentially two places that we operate here. There's this stuck zone you get in. It's just automatic. It probably comes from your childhood at some point, which I know is the last thing you want to talk about in counseling, right, is your childhood. But it is the reality. We are shaped and formed in our families and in our relationships, and we carry that into our modern day, and we have to be aware of that so we can begin to change it, and we can begin to connect to this life-giving zone. And so that's huge, and that's really important. And I have an exercise for you to begin to think about. I want you to work on identifying that stuck zone and that life-giving zone. And some of you might be saying, man, Rhett cruised through those words. I need some help on that. You know what? And I'll post these words up on my website at rhettsmith.com here on a blog this week so you can just have some words to look at. But here's what I want you to imagine. I want you to imagine you have a spotlight on your head for the next few days. Here's what happens when guys come to my office. I walk over to this lamp I have. It's a huge arching lamp. It hangs over this couch. And I literally stand under the lamp, and I tell the guys, this is what it looks like to have a spotlight on your head. And so I want you to walk out of my office and pretend like there's a light shining on you, which means it's shining in all the corners of your life. It means when the light's on us, we're paying attention to things. And I want you to work really hard the next 2 or 3 days to imagine that light is on you, and I want you to be aware of where do you get stuck? And when you get stuck, can you switch gears to connect to your truth, to be that guy who is a life giver? And I will say this, of all the exercises, all the things I've ever done in my entire life, this has been the most life-transforming for me. I began this work years ago in my own therapy with a counselor here in Dallas, and I probably even began it even before that, years ago. And I really started to work on it in the last few years when I was working with couples up at the Hideaway. And this is a single thing that has transformed my marriage and my relationship. Because when I go home, I know that I am only responsible for my behavior. I can only change where I get stuck, and I can only change to be that life giver. When I can do that, it changes my marriage, it changes my friendships, it changes everything. So I want you to work on that this week. We're going to move to the third and the final thing here. And this step 3 is just really about investing in yourself. And guys, I just think we're bad at taking care of ourselves, because I think we identify taking care of ourselves, one, as either being selfish, and it could be, we'll talk about that, or we picture, you're right, if you're asking me to take care of myself and I use the word self-care, what I picture is I have to be sitting in a spa somewhere getting my nails done and like some kind of cucumber over my eyes, right? I mean, that's what guys think of when I say self-care. That's not what I'm talking about. So we're going to look at what self-care is, and I'm going to look at 4 different areas. So what is self-care, first of all? Well, it's identifying your own needs. What is it that you need? Hey, I need to go for a run because it helps reduce some stress. I need to go on a date night with my wife because we really need to connect. I need to spend some time with my kids in the playground because when I do that, I feel like a better father. I feel like a better person. I'm able to emotionally connect. I need to retreat and just spend some time in prayer because that's what I need. So first of all, it's about identifying what you need. Second, it's about being able to receive from others, which is hard for us as guys. Sometimes we just need people to help us out. We need to let our guard down and let people help us. So sometimes self-care is about allowing people to come alongside us and help us. A pastor, a counselor, a friend, a coach, a spouse. And then last, it's about giving to others. Self-care, when done right, means that people benefit from it. So if you were to come to my office and say, Rhett, man, I found this new self-care, and it involves me going to the golf course every day for 10 hours, and it's awesome. I feel great, but you miss dinner every night with your family, and you're not connecting with your family. That's not self-care. That's just being selfish, right? Or if you're like, wow, there's this event coming up, this conference, and it's going to be every weekend for the next 2 months, and I really need it. It's going to be great for me. But those next 2 months, you totally disconnect from your family, and they're really, at home hurting from that. That's maybe not self-care. Maybe that's being selfish. And so we're going to look at what does it look like. And there's 4 areas: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And the best way to think about this is a car with 4 tires. If you have a car with 4 tires, I know here in Texas, I feel like some of the cars and trucks have like 16 tires and 10 tires on them and huge tires. But picture a typical car with 4 tires. And if you take care of those tires, you rotate them, you change them, you keep nails from them, you take care of them, and when they have a blowout, you change tires, then the car runs pretty smooth, right? You stay on the road, and you don't end up in the side of the ditch with a flat tire. It's the same thing with our life. If you think about these 4 areas as like our car tires, if we take care of the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, our lives can run pretty smooth. It doesn't mean we don't get angry. It doesn't mean we don't get depressed. It doesn't mean we don't get anxious. It doesn't mean we don't have problems. What it does mean is that we put ourselves in a better position to handle things when they come our way because we're taking care of ourselves. And we're able to give life and help people around us who are hurting, like family and like friends and people that we serve or minister to. And I talk about this in my book, What It Means to Be a Man, in chapters 10 and 11 specifically. And so it's something that's important to me. It's a topic that's important to me. And one of the things that I write is, that self-care is, it's not because we are selfish. We don't do self-care for ourselves because we're selfish, but we do it so we can give life to others. Otherwise, we suck the life out of people around us. So self-care, if you imagine, is like a fountain. Like if you fill up a fountain, and then it overflows to the lower levels. It overflows to other people. So when I do self-care right, I'm filling up myself so that it overflows to people around me. When I don't do self-care, I'm an empty fountain. I'm an empty well, and I have nothing to give. In fact, since I have nothing to give and I have nothing myself, I demand from other people to fix me, to make me feel better, to take care of my needs, and I get selfish, actually. I'm going to go to one of the verses in the Bible: love your Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. When we don't take care of ourselves, we're unable to really love people or take care of our neighbor because we don't really love ourselves. We're not really taking care of ourselves. And so I'm going to encourage you guys to think about this. And so what is it? Well, physical self-care is just taking care of our physical life. That's all it is. Exercise, eating healthy, getting plenty of sleep or rest. And so what's one thing you practice in this area? What's one thing you can tell me? Kind of go through your head right now and go, what's one thing you do to practice physical self-care? Or what about emotional self-care? What's that? Well, emotional self-care is taking care of, obviously, your emotional, but that relational piece, that relational life. And so for some people, I have clients, often guys I work with, tell me it's a date night with their spouse. Man, that's taking care of their emotional, relational life. Or it's time with close friends, like going to grab a coffee with a buddy, going to lunch. That's emotional self-care. Or making a date with one of your kids. That's emotional self-care, right? Things that we do. And so I'm going to ask you, what's one thing that you practice in this area? What's one thing you do to take care of your emotional self, your relational self? So it's physical, emotional, about mental. What do you do to take care of your intellectual life? So that is, what are the things that you do to stimulate that? It could be reading, it could be taking classes, listening to podcasts, engaging in deep conversation. I think what I encourage guys to do is to think about something they do that is outside of their work, right? Because I think it's easy for us to go, well, mental self-care is doing more and more business or doing more and more of this related to my profession. Sometimes that can be great, but sometimes we need a break. What are some other things that you do to stimulate your mental life? So what's one thing that you practice in this area? What about spiritual self-care? And, I don't know who's on the webinar today. I saw some names. I know some people I recognize, some I don't. And some of you might come from some faith background. Some of you might not. Some of you might practice out of a Christian tradition. Some of you might say I'm an atheist or agnostic. I don't know where you're at. I still believe that no matter where you practice out of, that there is a spiritual component to your lives, and it might look different for each of you, right? So for those of you practicing, in a faith tradition, it's something that you do where you are a part of a faith community, or it could be prayer, it could be worship, or listening, or some type of meditative exercise. I know for a lot of people that freaks them out, use the word meditation, but you know what? There are things that sometimes for me, because I struggle with anxiety, I come in my office each morning and I do a breathing meditative exercise to calm my nerves, to get me centered for the day, to calm down and relax. And I often, when I breathe and practice that meditation, I'll recite a verse in my head. Right now it's Psalm 46:10. Be still and know that I'm God. So I connect my breathing and my meditation to that verse. It's huge for me. Or it could be exercise. Some of you have told me, man, when I'm exercising and doing this, I feel really close to God. And I can relate to that. I love running and I feel close to God. So what's one thing you do to take care of your spiritual life? What's one thing? And so here's an exercise for you. You can do this in your head or do it in a piece of paper right now. I want you to draw 4 columns or imagine 4 columns. And the columns are going left to right. In the left column, you put physical, and the next emotional, and the third mental, and the fourth spiritual. You got 4 columns, and I want you to write down or to mentally write down one thing, just one thing, that you can immediately start doing in each area. Just one thing. What is it? Here's a tip. Just focus on that one thing for 30 days, because you can start then beginning to build a habit. I think we become overwhelmed when we start to put too many things down. And I don't know about you guys, but the guys I work with, and I know for myself, I tend to be all or nothing. If I can't go hard, then I'm not going to do it all. So, you know what, I'm just going to put 25 things down. I'm going to go crazy. I'm going to go to the gym every day for 2 hours. And then what happens after the first day you miss? Well, then you beat yourself up, you shame yourself, and you don't go to the gym again until next January 1st, right? So start small. One thing. What's one thing you could do? And you're going to look for a healthy rhythm each week. So you're going to start with one thing, and you're going to look back on the week before and go, okay, I saw where those 4 things were taking place in a healthy rhythm. Maybe you don't do everything every day, but you have a healthy rhythm of doing those things each in a 7-day period. So that's an exercise. I'm going to give you an example of my own life, what it looks like right now. And you can see I have more than one thing, and I have more than one thing because I've been doing this exercise for a long time, and so I keep adding different things, and I'll switch things around. But that's what this is a chart that I look at, and I can look at it and go, okay, I'm taking care of these things. And so, for example, when I go home at night, and if I'm impatient and I'm moody and I'm in my stuck zone, I can usually go to my office and look at this piece of paper, and I can identify where I'm not taking care of my life. Because when I take care of these 4 areas, I'm better able to identify my stuck zone and move to that life-giving zone. So this is a good reference, and I recommend you guys put it down on paper, one thing, and begin to practice that each week. So let's just kind of recap here and talk about what we've been talking about. We We talked about how to envision your ideal life by imagining your perfect day and creating a vision and mission statement that aligns with it. And why is that important again? Because where we don't have a vision, people perish. And by that I mean we get stuck, or your marriage dies on the vine, or your kids feel disconnected. So as a man, as a father, as a husband, where you lack a vision and you don't have an idea of what your life could look like or what your perfect day looks like, then people around you often don't have it either. So I think there's really a challenge to you to figure out what kind of life do you want to live. That's why it's important. Number 2 is we identified your stuck zone and helped you get a picture of what your life-giving zone looks like. And why is that important? Because if you can identify where you get stuck, you can then choose to move toward your life-giving zone and be the man that you need to be. And why is that important when it comes to emotionally connecting? Well, I'll tell you the story. This wife one time in my office said to her husband, she looked at him and just said, she was pretty upset. She said, will you just let me in on the process? And what she was saying to him is, I don't know what you're thinking. Like, you are not talking to me. You are not communicating to me. And as I looked at them, they were on opposite ends of the couch, which was a perfect representation of their marriage. Because the husband didn't know what he was feeling and wasn't able to communicate it and talk, there was this huge space between them on the couch, but also in their marriage and relationship. And the only way that the husband can close up that gap and they can close up that space and move towards an intimate relationship was his ability to really work hard in identifying what he's feeling, have language for it, and talk to her about it. Because when he can't talk to her about it, she's just guessing. And she may guess right and she may guess wrong, but he's failing to communicate what he needs to communicate to her. And when a guy can communicate to people in his life, whether it's a wife or a kid or a friend or a coworker, man, that is a deep connection. You're able to communicate what's going on, deep down inside. And you can also identify, man, when you're in a good spot, talking about what your spouse and your relationship is going on well, like what's healthy. You can be a better encourager. You can talk to her about the times that you feel alive and like the man you need to be in. You can talk about the times that your strengths come out. It's a completely different conversation, and it creates intimacy. And I see it day in, day out in the couples that I get to work with. And then last, we talked about how to invest in the 4 areas of your life, because self-care is huge, guys. It's one of the first things I start with men. I evaluate their self-care. Because if you're, let's just be honest, you're not sleeping and eating healthy and exercising and you're not connecting with people and you feel disconnected from God, and you know what? It's really hard to make change in your life. Like, you are just burned out. And so it often starts with taking care of yourself so you have the strength and energy and vision to move forward in a healthy way. And so that's what we looked at today. And, as you're sitting in the line and maybe you resonated with some of this stuff, I want you to begin to think about your own life, or maybe some of the guys that you know in your life who you wish were on this call and who needed to hear this message. And the question I have for you is, are you willing to stop living the life right now that maybe either you feel like you dread? I hear guys often say they dread it. Or just the life that they fear right now, or the life that they don't want. Are you willing to stop living that and to envision and create the life you want to live? Are you able to do that? Are you willing to stop that? Number 2, are you willing to do the hard work of becoming aware of where you get stuck emotionally and make the change to create that new pattern, that life-giving pattern that allows you to be open and to feel and to talk about how you feel in your relationships? That is hard work. I'm not going to lie to you. That is hard work. Are you willing to do that? And you probably are, because you're on this call. I think you're the type of guy probably who wants to. And last, are you willing to invest in yourself by putting into place practices in those core areas that we discussed? Are you willing to do that? And I think a lot of you are. I saw a lot of names on this webinar, and I know a lot of you who you are, and I think you are the type of guys who want to do that. And I've been thinking about this for a long time. As I said, I've been working with men for like 18 years. And here's the problem with men. I think we want a quick fix. Like, we really want to solve problems quick. And when things don't come quick and we can't see the results quickly, we often can't finish. We can't carry it through. And so we never see the change. And that's why guys don't do very well in counseling sometimes. That's why guys often don't come into counseling. They want a quick fix. And when the counselor says, well, you're going to have to come and see me every week for the next year, it's hard for a guy to come back to that, right? And so sometimes I just try to encourage a guy, let's just take it one at a time, but we need goals to shoot for. We need some kind of vision. And so I think in our culture it's hard for guys because we want a quick fix. and we don't know how to do it, right? And maybe you're one of those guys who wants a quick fix. You really want to change, but you're not really sure how to do it. And so I've been thinking about that. How do I come alongside and help guys? What kind of work can I offer them? What kind of ways can I encourage them? And I came up with this idea that I'm just calling the 60-day reboot challenge, right? Because we're going to reboot our lives, and we're going to do something different. And you know what? I don't want to call it the 365-day challenge because that's a long time. And a lot of us need to make some changes pretty quickly, and we need to get going. And people are depending upon us to make changes in our life. They're depending upon us. And so 60 days of doing hard work that will not only last for those 60 days, but you will put into motion what I believe is change that you can carry on and will be a map for the rest of your life. And so I'm calling it the 60-day reboot challenge, and it's the subtitle, just becoming a life-giving man of action this new year. Because it starts in January of 2014, January 7th through March 7th, 60 days. And here's what the program looks like. There's a bunch of components. Each guy in the program is going to get 8 weeks of homework. They're going to log online into this site, and they're going to get homework delivered to them. They're going to get videos that I create, worksheets that I create, exercises that I create, things that they have to do. And they turn all the homework in at the next week on Monday. In fact, they can't get the next week's homework until they turn all their homework in. So there's 8 weeks of homework. And each guy is going to get 2 hours of personal coaching with me anytime during those 8 weeks. I don't care how you break it up. You talk to me for 30 minutes at a time or hour at a time or 2 hours at a time, and we can do it on phone or Skype or in person. And each guy is going to have access to this private Facebook group that I've created. And you know what? That's actually one of the most powerful things. And the other groups that I've led and the other discussions I've led, that Facebook group time has been the most powerful because we don't feel alone. We feel like, oh, man, there's other guys who are struggling. And so that's going to be a huge component of change for men because we're going to have other men online to encourage us. And we're not going to be on it 24/7. We're going to have some balance, but you're going to have access every day to myself and the other guys to work on the work and to ask questions and to get encouragement. And then each week, you're going to have 1 hour conference call each Friday with myself and the other group of guys. And for those guys who can't make it sometimes, we're just going to record it. You're going to ask questions ahead of time. We'll answer them and record it, and then you can listen to it. And then in week 7 of the program, we're going to do 1 week of unlimited Skype and phone access where as we move out into the final weeks of the program, the final days, you're going to have unlimited access to get the help that you need and to really make change that's going to stick, right? Because a lot of us want to make change, and we make change, but it never sticks. And we want change that sticks. And here's the benefits, or here's what the course kind of looks like in short, just so I can kind of run through it with you. In week 1, we're just going to evaluate you. We're going to take stock of your life. A lot of you haven't really taken stock, and I'm going to give you tons of exercises to really become aware of what your day looks like, what your life looks like, what you kind of look like under the hood in essence. And we're going to use that to help craft a program for you. And then in week 2, we're going to move towards really helping you identify your stuck and life-giving zone, and we're going to do a lot of work around family issues, family of origin. We're going to really help you own it and take responsibility and not go back. I'm not going to do exercises that you go back and beat people up or place blame on family members, but who really exercises that really help empower you to go, man, this is how I was shaped and transformed. But this is the opportunity I have to be a life-giving man. And then we're going to move into week 3, and I'm going to help you identify your core strengths and values. I'm going to help you craft a vision and mission statement. You're going to actually send out a bunch of surveys to people and get feedback. Week 4, I'm going to help you develop a strategy for self-care that's sustainable and life-giving, and we're going to have some experiments I'm going to have you run. We're going to try some different things. We're going to have some other, I would call them experts in areas of self-care, come in and be guests and talk about it. In week 5, we're going to put some real practical application, and we're going to talk about what it means for you to be vulnerable in relationships and move towards intimacy in your relationships, and we're going to give you actually exercises to do so you get real-world practice around that. In week 7, I'm going to help you connect who you are, your identity, to your vocation. Here's why that's important. This word vocation, right, it comes from the word voce, Latin, which means calling or a summons to something. And I think a lot of guys, who we are and who God's created us to be is not connected to what we're called to or what we're being summoned to. We just end up going to a work that we do, and we kind of get stuck sometimes. For those that have that connected, that is awesome. But a lot of us, we need to figure out how do we connect who we are to the work that we're really called to so that we can live that out day to day in that life that God is calling us to and that we want to live. In week 7, we're going to really face our fears and be intentional and practice, and have a lot of exercises to help you begin to identify your fears, to work through them. In week 8, just going to put all the pieces together, and you're going to make a promise to the group, and we're going to create a framework, a lifelong framework for making intentional, ongoing, and sustainable change. And that's what it looks like, you guys, and the program. And here are the kind of the options I'm going to tell you about. I at one point spent 3 years of my life every week in weekly counseling. It was a huge investment of time and money, and it was great. It was a great experience for me. I made a lot of changes. But a lot of you, like I said, you don't have the time. You may not have the resources or the money to go every week for a year, for 2 years, to make the changes that maybe need to be changed in your life, in your marriage, and your family. And that model, though it's a good model, maybe it doesn't work for all of you. And so what I'm offering and presenting is a model that's intensive for only 12 guys. That's it. It's big enough where you can break into small groups, but it's small enough where it's personal and interactive. It's going to be intense, as I said. You get homework each week. You have to turn homework in. It's taught virtually, so you don't even have to go into counseling, guys. You can sit in front of your computer and do the work, but it has real-world application. You have exercises and practice to do in your family, in your marriage, at your workplace. It's accountable. So you're going to be accountable to me and 11 other men. So it's accountable, man. You got guys who are relying on you and depending upon you and encouraging you. It's going to be personal and interactive. You're going to get feedback every day, encouragement every day, exercises every day. When you get off track, we're going to help you get back on track. And it's customized. Though I built this program thinking about all my work with men over the last 18 years, you and I, if you're interested in this program, are going to spend some time on the phone coming up with a strategy that fits you. We can customize it to you. So here's what I'm going to encourage you to do, to think about the road that you want to go, because I really believe all of you are men who want to change your lives. And you can kind of go the traditional route, right, and spend a lot of money and a lot of time in counseling like I did, which is not bad, but maybe that's not where you are in your life. Or I'm offering to you this 60-day reboot challenge at the cost of $2,500. It's a huge value. What you get out of the program is way more than the cost of the program. And I believe it will really help guys. I was sitting here scratching my head for the last year going, how can I help guys who don't want to come into counseling? How can I help them? And I think this is one of the ways that I can help them get the most bang for their buck. And if this is something that you're interested in and you're on the line thinking, oh, man, do I want to do this? Here's just a couple of questions to kind of think about who you are and where you're at. I think there's like 3 types of guys right now, that I'm coming into contact with. And they're guys who kind of just stand by and they just don't make any change. They're hoping someone else will make the change for them, whether they're a wife or a kid or a friend. And there's the guy who's the active bystander. Like, he's really active. He reads books. He goes to conferences. It looks like he wants change, but it never sticks because he never commits to it at a deep level. And then there's the guy I just call the man of action, man. He's willing to face his fears. He's willing to commit to change. He's willing to invest in his life and the lives of other guys. If that's something that interests in you, then here's the opportunity you have. Again, I can only take 12 guys. I already have 6 guys that I've talked to who are interested in the program. So I'm looking for a few other guys to join this program. And the way that you join this program is to go to that website link below and just apply. And here's how you apply. Because I can only talk to a few guys, because the conversation is long, I need to know that a guy is serious. So you go to that link, and the way that you apply is you just leave a $500 deposit, and that deposit is totally refundable to you. If after a half hour of our strategy session you go, you know what, this program is not for me, then that's okay. You'll get the refund back, and hopefully another time you'll join the program or find some place, whether it's another counseling office or some program that will help you get the change you need. But after a half hour you go, you know what, this program is for me, then that $500 will be used towards the cost of the program for you. And you and I will begin the work of coming up with a plan that will help you get the change that you need to see happen. And so I encourage all you guys out there listening to think about, is this the right program for me? Is this what I want to do? Is this the change that I want in my life? And right now, there's some guys on the line. I appreciate you guys sticking through and listening to those 3 ways that I think can really help you on a daily, practical level be the guys that you need to be. And I'm just going to open it up for discussion. The chat room is open. If you guys have questions for me, you can go ahead and type in your chat, and I'll answer the questions. If they're ones that I can answer for you, I'll stick on the line for about another 10 minutes because I want to be thoughtful of your guys' time, and you guys already took time out of here. And if you know for sure you're on the line right now and you're thinking, okay, this sounds like something I want to do, and this type of program I want to be in, If you decide today, okay, I'm going to apply today because I think this is what I want to do and I know this is what I want to do, then you'll get $500 off the program, and you'll get 2 extra coaching calls. Each call will be an hour apiece, and you and I will spend some time right now between today and January 7th using those coaching calls to really help you strategize and come up with a plan that will really launch you full speed ahead into this program so you get the most bang for your buck. So again, if this program interests you and it's something you want to do, I really believe it's powerful for men. I really believe it can really help guys. If it's something you want to do today and you apply today, we'll take $500 off, and you'll get 2 extra coaching calls on top of all the other stuff in the program. If it's not for you, and that's cool. But if it's not for you, I hope that the 3 things that we talked about, you will get off the webinar, and you will go home and you will try these things. And I believe if you try these things, it will drastically change your life. It will drastically change your relationship, whether you're dating or you're married or the relationship you have with your friends. If you're a parent, it will drastically change that as well. And so you guys, again, I appreciate you hanging on the line. I'm just going to kind of stop talking here a little bit and see if any questions come in. If no questions come in, then that's awesome. And hopefully I answer questions for you. In a few minutes, I will hop off. One of the things that, as we kind of finish up our time here, I'll encourage you guys also to check out is probably saw in the resources there, I mentioned Terry Hargrave, the work of Terry Hargrave, and I will post online at rhettsmith.com. I'll post a blog later this week that will list out a lot of the words that I put up so that you can kind of look at that as a resource and go, oh, okay, I can't remember that word Rhett was talking about. I'll put that up there. You can look at it as a reference, and I'll put some other tools up there that you can refer to as well. But if you decide, man, I want to move forward with this, then feel free to apply at the program, and I will actually be in touch with you right away. If you apply, I'll be in touch with you, and we will set up a strategy session to take place in the next few days, and we'll go ahead and talk about what this program might look like for you. And it's an exciting time. I think I'm looking forward to 12 guys being involved, and I think back in my own time, in my own transformation. I'm currently in a group right now working as well, and it's absolutely changed my life. Because here's the thing. We can't do it alone. Like, I feel like I'm pretty smart, and I know you guys are pretty smart as well. I know you guys are smart guys, and you guys, like me, know the type of changes that we often need to make. We just can't do it on our own. We need people to come alongside of us. We need help. We need accountability. We need encouragement. We need a kick in the rear sometimes. And then sometimes, as smart as we are, we just don't know where we need to make changes. We're kind of blind to them. And we need someone to come alongside and say, hey, man, that's a blind spot. You need help there. So again, I just want to encourage you guys to get the help that you need, and I hope that I can be one of those resources that can help you, and I pray and hope that this program will be the type of program that will change your life. So we got a couple more minutes. I'm going to stay on the line a couple more minutes, and if anyone has any questions, type them in. I noticed some of the names on the call. I appreciate you guys spending the last hour with me. A lot of the calls, a lot of the names I noticed on the line are guys also in ministry and who serve other guys, and so I thank you for your work. I know that serving other men is important to you, and if you at all feel like, man, there's some guy that would really benefit from being in a program to really change his life, then I encourage you just to recommend him to the program, and let's set up a time where I can talk to him, and we'll go from there. Got another minute on the line. I'm thankful that my voice held up. I'm about to lose my voice. If you guys have any questions about anything that we talked about, type it in and let me know. And we will answer any questions you have. If not, I'm going to end our time here promptly at 2 o'clock. And again, I want to thank you guys for coming on. I attend a lot of webinars, and I know sometimes to take the time out of your day to listen to a guy talk across the screen can be really difficult. But I know you're on here because I know you're the type of guy who wants some help. And I hope that I was able to help you today, and I hope that I can continue to help you in this program. So again, 2 o'clock. Appreciate you guys' time. going to end the meeting, and I pray and hope that you guys have a good day today. Thanks for taking the time out.